Commission meeting. Welcome, members, commission, staff,
Thank you.
everybody in our viewing, listening audience. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Any changes from commissioners? Any changes?
None
Any changes from staff?
None from staff.
I would look for a motion then.
So moved?
I moved by Commissioner Thomas and, I'm sorry, who seconded it? Commissioner Brederick. All right, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the November 13th, 2013 meeting. Any changes from commission?
None for me, Chair.
Any changes from staff?
None from staff.
I would look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
A move by Commissioner Singh,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
All- All opposed? That passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing. Minigasco, Inc. has submitted an application for a conditional use permit amendment to allow essential services, pipeline and related mechanical equipment, and to erect a building located at 11500 12th Avenue South.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, this is a public hearing for Minigasco. The site we are looking at is the Minigasco Center Point. They call it the Dakota Station property. It is in the northwest corner of 12th Avenue and Cliff. It is 112 acres in size. You have, I'm sure, been by it any number of times and may not notice that it is in this area right here. And 12th Avenue is here. Cliff Road sits here. There are other developments right on the corner and a couple other properties right here. The balance of the property is owned by Minigasco. Here's an aerial photo, again, of the property. It does slope significantly to the north, to the river. Much of it, a very high percentage of the site is green space. There are utilities in this area, and that's the primary focus of our discussion, and I'd like to indicate that on this aerial photo. The structure will be in this area right here, and the pipework will be right in here. Again, for visibility, buffering, landscaping, anything like that from the adjacent properties, they are well within their setbacks and well within a secluded area, if you will, at least secluded from the public street where staff does not have concerns with any nuisances being created by this project. Again, we're looking at installation of gas pipeline, approximately 1,600 square feet of it, as well as the addition of a regulator building, a accessory building to the site to house equipment for the facility. The subject site is zoned I-1, which is industrial. It's also indicated as industrial in our comprehensive plan, so it is consistent with the zoning and the comprehensive plan for the property. There's quite a bit of history on the site there because of the nature of the gas line being an essential utility or a utility. The city has deemed it a essential service, which allows it in many of our zoning districts, not as a permitted use, but as a conditional use. So we have the ability to review whether it's CenterPoint or someone else doing the work. We have the ability to review those actions and the proposals and what effect it may have on the surrounding properties. Again, the proposed pipeline's about 1,600 linear feet. The building is just under 800 square feet in size. Very modest. Again, it would not be occupied by personnel, but rather keeping equipment out of the weather and secure. let's see here. So this is a close-up of the subject area, if you will. I'm going to just backtrack on a slide. In reference, we're talking about this right here. Again, here's the close-up. This blue rectangle would be the proposed regulator building. What you have in red here is the proposed installation of the pipeline. It would run east and west, connecting. What you see in black is existing services running in and out of the facility. So this would be a connection from east to west within that. Again, I did indicate it is sloping to the north. You can see the topography here, as well as the steep slopes here. Everything is moving to the north. The areas indicated in blue are wetland, and we asked the applicant to confirm these areas. We knew they were on-site, but we did not know the proximity of the proposed work to these areas. Staff has reviewed it, met with our Natural Resources Department, and because they are staying out of the proposed or the existing wetland, we're comfortable. We have no additional requirements related to that. So the proposed building would be accessed from existing driveways throughout the area. We do have a requirement that any proposed drive areas be hard surface, either concrete, bituminous, or other. We do not categorize Class 5 as a improved hard surface. In this situation, there's a significant amount of Class 5 out there. The site's been in use for a substantial amount of time. The city's not looking for improvements to those surfaces at this time. We just would like to acknowledge those are non-conforming issues, and if there was substantial redevelopment or something else that would correlate to improving those areas, we'd certainly pursue it then. At this point, we don't see the need to seek bituminous or anything on those existing drives. Again, the pipeline proposed is significant in size, 20 inches in diameter. It is a regional system that comes in and out of this facility. And again, a brief comment on the building. Although it is well screened and not visible from public streets and surrounding properties, it is well designed. It is concrete, textured concrete masonry block. It's consistent with the ordinance. There's not a lot to it, specifically because it's for security and keeping those pieces of equipment out of the weather. Staff has no concerns with the design of the building. There is only one tree coming out on site, and you can see by the aerial photo there's a significant amount of vegetation on site. Our engineering staff has reviewed the application. We've been in communication with CenterPoint and their consulting team to work through this. There are additional permitting items that need to be resolved before construction can occur. The applicant's aware of that, and I think we're comfortable with those conditions. The last item I'd like to bring up, Commissioners, the property is unplatted. It exists as meets and bounds. It is not a lot and block. Anytime we review something by conditional use permit or PUD, we'd like to, we request or suggest to the applicant that this be platted into a lot and block. That would be consistent with our ordinance, both zoning and subdivision. The work being done here is not in correlation to the time and the money that Mini Gasco would spend on platting this area into a lot and block. It would be over 100 acres. It would be a significant cost to them. Staff just wanted to put that in the comment section, make the applicant aware of that. Staff has spoken with their legal team, understanding this may come up in the future if there is a substantial development on the site. That really gets to the conditions. Staff has recommended with the request 3 conditions in your packet. Commissioner, staff is supportive of the application. Dan Christensen with CenterPoint is here. We have our engineering staff available. I think we can answer any questions you have, and it is a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Slania. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Slania?
Chair, one
Interesting.
question. Chris, in your document or packet to us on this matter, you mentioned that, let's see here where it is. Regarding special measures, we will require special measures to be taken for the preservation of the wetland area. However, I don't see any condition for that. Do we need a condition for that?
It's not something staff was concerned with. After discussing with the applicant, they're cognizant of the situation. We can certainly add it. It doesn't hurt anything, but staff's comfortable with the conditions as is.
What about the erosion control measures? Same?
Same, correct.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think CenterPoint has been a very good citizen, if I call it that, in our city, and they have always worked well with staff and the city to get things done. And so I would take them on their word that they will do diligence to make sure that the erosion control is taken care of. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chair. Chris, isn't the NPDES permit, that the erosion control measures and all that is enforced through that permit, isn't it?
Yeah, and I can add to that a little bit, Commissioners. They, after we had initially commented, because their plans weren't, they indicated BMPs or best measurement practices. We wanted them to get more specific as to what they were going to be using. In fact, they're using multiple layers now of erosion control downstream or upstream of those wetlands to protect them. So everything that you're talking about it's part of a site plan. It's also part of the NPDES permit, but it is on their site plan shown now in addition. So I think we can feel safe that they are doing their job on that.
Okay, thank you. And just to confirm, Chris, on the map that you have up now, there's just to the south of the pipeline, there's a kind of a purple area there. Is that one of the wetlands too, or is that
That is not, do you know what that? Commissioners, I apologize. That is from the excavation. That's their soil stockpiling.
okay? All right.
The pipeline is in red, and this is the purple indicating where they're storing that soil during the work.
Okay, thank you. I just need that clarification. Thank you.
Commissioner Bradley?
Chris, on the conditions, I'm curious then, for the pollution control, typically that's required in all, we haven't seen that as a condition. What's the reasoning behind it being a condition for this applicant versus?
There are certain projects we'll add it on, specifically when we're not sure how the timing is going to work, what permits are getting pulled first, whether sometimes the MPDS is pulled before it even reaches the city, or they have it in hand. It's a safeguard, is really what it is.
And then the barbed wire, that's just obviously it's, I'm a little, I guess not, I'm unaware of that as a condition, so they're obviously using it today and we're just acknowledging that?
Correct. Commissioners, it was something requested as part of the application. It also in use in other areas on the site. We wanted the paper trail and to codify that is part of the approval if there were any questions in the future. It's spelled out in the staff background, but we wanted it to be readily available if we ever had a question on it. We, both staff and the applicant then know it was approved.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Slania. Any questions for Mr. Christensen? Thank you. This is a public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing at this time. Anybody who wants to comment or has any questions, feel free to step forward at this time and ask or comment. Seeing no one, I would close the public hearing. At this point, I think, unless somebody has any discussion, I'd just look for a motion, I think, at this time. Mr. Julik?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the city approval of the conditional use permit amendment to allow essential services and to erect a building located at 11500 12th Avenue South with the following conditions. One, the applicant shall obtain a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency prior to construction. Two, the use of barbed wire as a security fence component is acknowledged and permitted as part of this conditional use permit. And three, as the site is currently unplatted and the applicant has been put on notice that significant future improvements to the property will trigger the planning process.
Thank you. I'd look for a second.
Second.
Commissioner Bradrick seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that passes 5-0, and we'll go to the full council on December 3rd, I believe.
Correct. Next week, Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing. Data Equity LLC has submitted an application for a conditional use permit to allow religious assembly within the existing building located at 12156 Nicollet Avenue. Mr. Slania.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This is also a public hearing. Here's an image of the subject site. It's an existing office warehouse building owned by Data Equity. There's a purchase agreement or, not purchase agreement, lease agreement with Illumination Church to pursue religious assembly at this piece of property. They would be one of a number of tenants operating out of this building. To put it in perspective, Illumination Church would be occupying this, would be the northwest end of the building. Nicollet Avenue runs right through here, and Cliff Road is to the north. Again, the whole area is Zone B3 and consists of any number of office warehouse facilities. The total building size is 36,000 square feet. The church would be pursuing just short of 9,000 square feet on this end. As I indicated, it is zoned B3. It exists as a PUD. The whole neighborhood, if you will, this whole strip of Nicollet was approved as a planned unit development. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan designation for the site as well. Religious assembly within the B3 as well as any of the other commercial districts as well as single-family residential requires the conditional use permit. That's what brings us here. That's what requires the public notice is the need for the conditional use permit. The subject site was platted, as I said, as part of the Nicollet Business Campus. And we'll get to some of the details of the building. So again, Nicollet Avenue is right out here. Indicated here is the proposed tenant space for Illumination Church. These are other tenants within the building. This has a floor plan to it. This one does not. That's not particular to this project. We'll get into some of the details for the church in a second, but this puts it in perspective. There is a access point out to Nicollet here, and the parking lot wraps around all sides of the building. It does dead end on this end. The church would have parking available in this area as well as in the back. What you see here in the darker lines would be additional parking stalls if needed. We'll get to the parking criteria in a second. Originally, the applicant or staff and the applicant were discussing parking. They said we have the ability to add future parking stalls should that become an issue. Staff does not see that becoming an issue, and we'll get to some of those parking calculations here in a second. Currently, Illumination Church worships in Prior Lake. They are currently operating as, excuse me, one service on Sunday mornings. With that service, they also have some youth components, nursery specific to that service. There is not full-time school or full-time daycare associated with this operation at this time. They are seeking a permanent location they can call their own, and they have been working with Data Equities. Staff feels this is a great use of the site. It allows shared parking for normal business hours, 8 to 5. This space would be very limited in occupation except for some office staff. The weekends, again, Sunday mornings would be their peak. That is off hours for the balance of the tenants in the building, which works out very well for the facility. When looking at the religious assembly, the sanctuary space, the size, the amount of people that can hold, the classroom space, the office space, the parking demand for this CUP would be 84 spaces. The balance of the building with uses tied to office warehouse, that balance, or excuse me, that demand for parking's 24 spaces. So you're looking at a demand of, let's see, total demand of 118. The subject site provides 123 stalls. So even without the additional parking in the back, these stalls, the facility does provide sufficient parking. You know, we certainly hope that Illumination Church is here for an extended amount of time, that they're successful in the community, they continue to grow. They have the ability to add those stalls should something arise in the future. I did discuss the off-peak hours. Staff sees that as a benefit. It puts this facility to use on Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights when they're offering youth classes, and again, with the ability of the additional parking in the back, staff has no concerns with the proposed parking. There is an item tied to the screening, and I will get to that. These are trash enclosures that do not exist today. Currently, the applicant, or I should say the property owner, has unscreened dumpsters in the back of the loading area. They're certainly screened from the public view and well blocked by the building from Nicollet, but it is not consistent with the ordinance. During staff's review, this was uncovered, and working with the property owner, we'd certainly like Illumination to move forward be able to occupy the space this winter. There is a condition that the property owner move forward with the trash enclosures when the weather warms up in the spring. As far as staff's aware, that is a compromise that's reasonable with the property owner, and we have no concerns with that. There are really only two conditions with the report. Both happen to be tied to the trash enclosure. Again, we feel this is a good use of the space and compatible peak times for a good mixed use of the area. Illumination Church does have a team here to answer any questions. If I can't answer it, I believe we can find someone that can answer your questions, and commissioners, I'll stand for any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Slaney. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Julik?
Thank you, Chair. Chris, I would assume for religious assembly, there's some special computation for the parking, or is?
There is. The sanctuary space is the highest driver. That is one parking stall for every 3 seats. The office area, the classroom, nursery, that is not specific to religious assembly. Staff takes office of any nature and uses that. We certainly don't see the office area full of staff at the same time the sanctuary's full of people, but we take the worst case scenario. And that's really, by ordinance, we fill up the building and calculate that so that we know we have a comfort level. Even on a worst case scenario, we've got the parking.
So it's more related to the, I guess, seating in the sanctuary
Correct.
and the office space, not necessarily to the overall size of the congregation. So as a congregation grows, they're still okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And
That's a great point. I want to bring that up. Currently, the church is operating with one service on Sunday morning. They're more than comfortable with that for the immediate future. If things grow and they are successful, they have the ability to adjust that time, add another service to Sunday morning rather than trying to add additional seats or occupants at one specific time.
all right, and I think you mentioned in the packet that they don't have their signage fully planned just yet, and
Correct.
they would have to come back in, or at least to staff with a sign plan for the entire site, or for
For their tenant
just
space.
their tenant space.
Correct. They haven't asked for any deviations or variances. We're comfortable working with the signage when they're ready.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions?
One,
Commissioner Bradley?
I'm glad you asked the signage question, because, that's been kind of a struggle lately on a couple areas. So, so when we talk about signage, a lot of these, in a multi-tenant building, there's usually a plan or something in place already for how that development will be signed.
Correct. The building owner will have specific criteria. I did not look for it. Oftentimes, we have a copy of that at City Hall as well. And that is oftentimes more restrictive than what the city would allow.
Okay.
To keep tenants on a equal playing field or what have you, oftentimes the building owner has more restrictive criteria.
And since they didn't ask for a deviation, we're not anticipating anything there?
Correct.
Okay. And on the parking, on the site plan, it looked like there was a couple of options. It looked like adding some parking if they needed it. There was an option A and an option B, and I'm assuming the initial option is, it looks like they're just striping the back lot, which was, looks to me initially designed for turnaround for trucks, probably to back up to the dock.
Correct.
Once again, I think that's an excellent use. It's already blacktopped.
It is.
We're not adding any hard surface. We're just delineating where the cars are going to park. So the other options would be down the road if they do feel like they need that additional parking.
Commissioners, let me just indicate, this would be their additional parking. This exists today. That was actually, I believe, a layover from a previous previous project or previous tenant improvement.
Oh, okay.
That was,
So those are both in place today?
they are in place
Okay.
today.
I saw option A and option B, so I assumed that was, so.
Tied to this, and I apologize, in writing the report, I was going to indicate that, and it slipped my mind. But all of this is in place today.
Okay. Sure, that's the end of my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Julik?
Just a point of clarification, I was a little bit confused. They, today, or at least as part of this, they're not striping the,
They are not adding, or I
Yeah.
should say, staff is not requiring they add this.
so there's no parking lot striping going on as part of this approval? But
Correct.
it's just shown as.
They have the
as a future.
ability
Okay.
to add it, which, whether they add just the outside or move in here, that's a discussion they'll have with the property owner. Do the loading docks still need that maneuvering space or not? And it depends on the tenants that are in the building at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Selenia. Any questions for any of the individuals here? Thanks. This is a public hearing. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Anybody has any questions or comments, again, please feel free to step forward and ask or comment at this time. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open this for discussion, if anyone has any comments at this time. Commissioner Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think this is a reasonable application, and I intend to support it, and I ask you Commissioners to lend your support for this application. You know, recently we have had in our city some negative press because of crime, and here we have an opportunity to grant tenancy for a church, which I firmly believe brings stability to any, or helps to bring stability to any community. And I think it's a good move by the owner of the property to lease space to the church. So I would support it. I think it's a good move, and I hope the City Council also approve it. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Anybody else have any comments? Mr. Julik?
I guess I do have another question for Chris. As a CUP, were the neighboring tenants also notified here? And
They were, Commissioners, I believe there are 2 neighboring tenants and then a third vacant space. The neighboring tenants did receive a separate notice, and staff did not hear from them.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I'd like to also echo Commissioner Singh's comments. I think a couple things. I think this is a great use of the space. When we talk about land use and buildings setting empty and parking lots setting empty on the weekends and nights, with the give and take with the existing tenants and the use of the building, I think this is an excellent use. So I also would be supporting this.
Great.
Application.
Thank you, Commissioner Brederick. I would look for a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the conditional use permit to allow religious assembly within the existing building located at 12156 Nicollet Avenue with the following 2 conditions. 1, the applicant shall construct a trash enclosure on site consistent with Section 1019(1)B no later than June 1st, 2014. And 2, a building permit for the enclosure shall be obtained prior to the construction.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Any seconds?
Seconded?
Second, Commissioner Julik. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes 5-0. This will go to the council on December 3rd also. Thank you very much, and good luck to you.
Good luck. Thank you for coming in.
Looks like the next item on the agenda is any updates. Commissioners, any updates, anything? Commissioner Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think all of us are aware that next Saturday is designated Support for Small Business Day. And we have many of those small businesses within our great city. And I would encourage, I'll be going out to small businesses. I don't know how much I'll spend, but I'll make sure I do. I've got to walk my talk. And I encourage you to, Commissioners and the general public, if you can go out and support our local small businesses on Saturday, this coming Saturday, it would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Staff, any updates?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just one, the commission has one meeting left for 2013. That'll be Monday, December 9th, and the draft agenda's out.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh?
Happy Thanksgiving to all our commissioners and
Happy
staff.
Thanksgiving to you, too.
Thank you.
Everybody, wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, a safe Thanksgiving, safe travels. That would be good as well. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Singh, seconded by Commissioner Bradrick. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you very much.